Kia ora, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm sitting here with my friend,
Te Ariki Mana.
and we hope you enjoy this episode. We're fading on in. What's happening? What's been going on?
Not much.
Not much?
Been in and out of hospital for a little bit over the last couple of weeks. But no, so it was pretty random by luck that you messaged, last week just after, I'm coming out of everything saying that you wanted to do this.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying to everyone, so basically if it takes a really long time to get someone on, I'm like, if we just persist, we'll find the right time. And when we do find the right time, we'll actually have like a conversation that, you see some evolution in that person. Yeah. Even though we haven't had like a before, we can get the like stages as we go through. So hospital, because hospital is not just like a nothing. That's just like, I'm not going to the doctors. You're going to the hospital. What is this?
So pretty much what's been happening over the last year, I've been having some issues with my puku, with my stomach, and over the last 1 or 2 months, it's just been getting worse. And so I was at work one night, and pretty much I was all good, like I was fine, walking around doing my thing, and then I just got tired all of a sudden, and then 10 minutes later I was just curled over in a corner next to the oven, trying to tell people, all right, we're going to pack up now, I'm deteriorating pretty quick. And then one of my workmates, she came around the corner and she's like, all right, you need to go now.
Yeah.
I took myself into hospital. I was in there for the night. They released me early morning, went home, got up the next day, just got out of bed, and I pretty much collapsed and was just curled over next to my bed. I went downstairs heaving to my flatmate and said, can you please take me back to the hospital?
Damn.
Yeah.
Wait, so are you still doing tests or figuring out what's actually happening with you?
So what happened was they did a few blood tests, try to do all the blood tests, testing for everything, my liver, pancreas and all that sort of stuff. And they couldn't find anything that was wrong with it. Besides me being in pain, it just looked like, I was just in hospital for almost nothing. But they've got me booked in for a gastroscopy.
Okay, so they're going to get right up in there.
Yeah. So I'm due to have a camera down my throat next month.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
And so in this period, so next month is when you're actually going to get it looked at.
Yeah.
And what have they said to you for if this event happens again, if you end up in fetal position again, what do you just have to go back in?
I just have to go back in. They don't really do much else. They gave me some medication for cramps.
Yeah.
And they gave me omeprazole, which helps to neutralize your stomach acids, just in case it's a stomach ulcer.
Yeah.
But I'm showing no signs of, stomach ulcers or what do you call it? Just any allergies or anything.
Sure.
So it's just quite
That's
random.
right. Yeah, I remember the old omeprazole because some people who have gastric reflux, we'll take it. So it's coming up this way, but now you're talking. Damn.
Yeah.
So that's been full on.
It's been pretty intense.
And what are the thoughts that go through your head? Because I had appendicitis, and I had the same thing where it just came out of nowhere, and all I could do, I was just like, okay, is this a big poo? Do I need a gas? And then none of that works, and do I need to throw up? Because those are all the things. Once your stomach gets unsettled, you're like, okay, these are the main things I know, and then it just gets to a point where you're like, okay, and all you can do is lie down, and then you start losing feeling. In your mind, what's the process of this is pain? Is this going to be okay? How did that go?
So, like I said, it's just been happening for a year, just stomach stuff, but recently, when I went into hospital, I came out thinking, what if this happens again? I've really got to get on top of this. Yeah. And so I've kind of done, things that I know will help. I started taking, what's it called? I started making herbal teas. Yeah. Kawa teas and stuff that. Just going back to what I know. Yeah. And there's that fibre drink that old people drink.
Just something to get the bowels going?
Just something to keep everything moving. And pretty much since, my energy's back up. Yeah. I guess what I've been kind of putting it down to was sort of where my wairua was at. Cool. Am I ignoring this hunger in my stomach to do more? Yeah. Just to be where I'm at the moment. So I don't know if it's my body's way of telling me, just you got to reignite something, and just just do something. And with this whole with us coming into the Māori New Year, the whole, the moon phases and stuff like that, are all shifting energies, and I feel like it's been kind of a wake-up call for me to like start this year on a, let's set something out and let's chase it. But yeah, it's amazing how sicknesses and stuff like that can alter your mindset that.
It's one of those things where, because when you're, it's like privilege, I guess. So when you have the health, you're always thinking about, what can I do?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna kill that. I'm gonna be on top of this. But as soon as you're sick, all you want is to not be sick anymore, and you like start thinking, what are the ways that I can get out of the sickness? It's a really like. The timing of this is so perfect, because last week, I've been starting to talk about maramataka and starting to talk about aligning energies so that you're working with your environment, who like pretty much grew you and knows you more intimately than you know yourself. Yeah. So for all of this, I mean, the mighty Frank Edwards, he used to always talk to me like when things would go wrong, he was like, what have you promised yourself that you're not fulfilling? Because when I'd start feeling like anxiety and all that, and he was like, it's because you've said that this is you as a person, these are your values, but something you're doing is not aligning with that. I'm like, shut up, Frank. You're too right. Yeah, and like having those checks. So for you, thinking about, because it's almost like setting a resolution, but because a resolution is a very Western concept for January 1st, not even aligning with who we are, what are you starting to think of as like the shift in your energy?
So pretty much it's come down to where we are as a society right now. Like we were so, we stopped quite easily for COVID when it came in 2020, and that just changed my perspective when it came to studies. Like I was paying, 10K to study here, and then I moved online, so ended up I couldn't really. I'm a people person, so I need to be in class. And so I kind of pulled out of that and just started focusing on mahi, and then so we stopped easily for COVID, but in the wake of climate change, where we need to be kind of looking after our whenua and stuff like that. It was an eye opener. Like we've got goals set for 2040, 2050 to be carbon neutral, and I'm like, I'm just like, well, what are we doing in the meantime to help, especially as people as tangata whenua, with what we know, and what we know about our whenua, what we know about te ao Māori, what we know about, just how, how the stars could easily determine
for sure.
What our natural environment will provide for us for the year. Speaking about matariki, and I'm like, we've gone so far away from that, just engraved in this Western whakaaro, that, we have the ability to harvest what we can when we want, but we've just lost touch with the world, and the world's trying to tell us, hey, you guys do need to slow down. And that was my shift in whakaaro when we were in COVID. I was like, well, if we could stop for that, why aren't we stopping to assess the world around us right now?
It's one of those things where, like, because the thing with climate change, it's like one of those insidious things where it could be a bunch of things, but then like we could nail this virus down to people like one by one going down, rather than just looking at like the pain that we cause to this entire thing that provides so much. We'd be like, oh, well, we're not getting it from here, we can manufacture it here. So like there's always places that people can go, because it's all where the dollar's going to go. But for you, having such an intimate kind of relationship with te ao Māori and actually understanding that, is that something that's been part of your upbringing?
I suppose so. Like just the values and stuff that were ingrained in us in primary school, you carry that stuff to adulthood, and all of a sudden, when you're here, it feels like adulthood is almost a joke. Like you're taught all these things as a child, and then when you bring it into the adult world, everybody is just like, oh, that's not actually how the world works and stuff like that. But having my culture ingrained within me, having te reo Māori, me ona tikanga, that sort of stuff, like just it helps. Our language helps me understand my culture. It helps me understand the world around me because of the words that we use. You know, to describe
things.
Yeah, to describe things, and that's what it comes down to. It's our language is a way of life, and it's not hard to forget when you know you're speaking it with other people, that the joy, the the light, the love that comes out of the words that we express compared to just speaking English every day. Just there's that aspect going for it.
Yeah, and it's everything that comes with it. It's the metaphor. It's the everything that's ingrained within. You know, you could have a whole sentence in English. And pretty much say nothing and just be like, oh, I think this, and you just like superficially, this is what you've touched. You could use 3 words in Māori and you've explained an entire concept. And it's just because this is the metaphor that's weaved within another metaphor. So understanding language. Also just the having that, I think if you can have a language and then connect it to like everything that you understand in terms of the world, so overall worldview, that's when you start feeling like I'm part of something, rather than just like, this is a way of communication. Like, no, this is a way of being.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's always given me a sense of pride and a sense of belonging, and to be able to converse with other people who speak Te Reo Māori, especially when I came down here to study. Like, it was just amazing, because I realised that being here, we all come from like different backgrounds and things like that, and just the amount of people that I got along with, Māori and non-Māori, and we were here for one purpose, and that was just to better ourselves. And it was good. It was cool finding that we're coming down here, especially after being, just back in your own little comfort zone with your whānau, where you got everybody is striving to be a little bit better, but being down here where you can sort of relate to everyone. Like, language wasn't a boundary. We just understood each other. We understood the game, and the goal was to better ourselves. And I feel like, just language. Language was an important part in that.
And the part that brought you all together. And being able to, it didn't matter where you were geographically, that you always find a common boundary. Finding
the words too, because I could never imagine myself getting along with the people that I had got along with. When I was back in high school, like I didn't realize how. I don't know. It was just, it's an amazing experience being down here.
For sure, yeah. And then so thinking about coming down here as well, like it is, it's almost like a weird place to think about going to. Like, especially if you have never been down here, and if you're just like in the North Island, because I came from the North Island when I came from the, like being like, I've never been further south than like maybe the top of the South Island, and I don't know anyone who's down there. So for you, and like leaving, that comfort zone, and then thinking like, is this going to work? Like, were you thinking more about what you're going to study, or were you thinking more about just like exploring somewhere else?
I thought about what I was going to study, so I had a goal, I had a plan, I had a purpose. I came down here to study medicine, actually. And one of a couple of my tuakana actually from high school, they ended up down here, and they just told me how good it was, the courses that they provided, and my guidance counsellor as well kept in contact with them, and pretty much showed me a way to get to sort of where I wanted to be, just by showing me what my tuakana were doing. And it was cool to have sort of role models that were down here, role models that were doing good for themselves, so that's pretty much how I ended up down here. And then I suppose, Houseide
it's full on.
It is, it's full on. First semester was amazing. Second semester became a bit complacent, and so I ended up studying anatomy for a little while. And that was cool. I took that as an opportunity to study things that things that I wanted. That interested me. So I did French and Spanish as well.
Damn. Yeah. Was there any background in French and Spanish before?
No. I was just like, if I'm going to do a degree, I might as well fill my spare time up with something that's going to, benefit me.
For sure. Yeah.
Like started here in 2015. I did the Tukahika foundation year. And then, moved into Houseide 2016, anatomy 2017 and 2018 with some of those interest papers. And it kept kept that spark alive.
That's cool.
For me to want to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, because I honestly think a lot of people who come into university, they never really think about themselves as an individual, being a curious individual. It's just like, what do I need to do to get that paper?
Yeah.
But like, if you come out of the end of the paper and all you've learned really was like the paper codes that you were doing and how to memorize a lot, like what was the university experience for? Like
exactly.
in a lot of that, it should be so that you can apply stuff or you can learn how to learn and be curious about the world and ask questions and learn how to find information.
Yeah.
And I still think that the system that we're going through in terms of people learning with quotation marks is still not being realized. And I honestly think 3 years is a lot of people would want to get it and then go get a job, then learn that way. But like 3 years, I remember after my third year thinking about going into a job, I was like, I'm 21. I have no idea what the heck if I was to go into the real world. So the exploration is awesome, bro.
Yeah. No, after anatomy, actually, so I had to go home in 2019 for just to help out at home. So when I came back in 2020, I had this goal. I was like, even if I study until 30, I know that I'm going to enjoy what I study. I know that I'm going to apply myself. My goal shifted from helping the individual patient because growing up Māori, you're exposed to a lot of health inequities. And my whānau didn't have the best experience going through hospital and things like that, going through the public health system. So, all that was my drive to do better, to be that change inside the system. And then when I came back in 2020, my goal had shifted. I was like, the reality is that, I can only help so many people being a doctor, change needs to come from higher up. And then that's when I began studying public health. Well, I attempted to 2 times in 2020 and then 1 time in 2021 before I decided to, for my own sanity, just focus on work. Deciding that change needed to come from higher up and that... And then, this new degree came out here at the university, the Māori Health degree, and then all of a sudden, the Māori Health Authority that was formed, I was like, people are actually making moves. This is actually happening, and it was good to see. And as much as I wanted to be part of that, also what was happening at the time too, because I think a lot of people went through this as well, but, going through COVID, being isolated all the time. I knew a few people who had, like myself, just sort of slipped back into depression and things like that. And for me, in my experience, like it wasn't tough. It wasn't unmanageable. I was still, going for my walks. I had a really cool flat out in St Kilda, and then again, then I moved closer to work, so I could focus on that. And I moved in with some friends then. I had nothing but, the best support around me, the best people. So I was fortunate enough to have that. And it's been a pretty, up and down kind of, last couple of years, but been writing it out and it has just carried me to where I am.
That's awesome, yeah. So and seeing those different things and getting excited that, like, even if you do come back to it later in life, these things are establishing themselves and starting to grow. So there's always going to be avenues for you to get back into, which I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think everyone thinks life happens now, and like if I don't do this now, I'm gonna miss out. The rest of my life is gonna be shit. But like, there's so much time and things need to evolve, and that evolving has to come from you as well. Like you need to be ready to take it on.
Exactly.
So in terms of like you noticing, you had to take a break from study to focus on, you're keeping yourself intact because you're the person at the end of the day who's going to go through it. What did you start to notice within yourself to realize like, okay, I can't keep up with this?
So it was pretty much just the initial 4 weeks in lockdown. Was the first giveaway. Like there was a little bit of anxiety, but mostly it was because I couldn't be sat in my room all day.
In front of a screen.
Teaching myself. I was like, I paid $10K, to be here this year. Why am I all of a sudden trying to, research everything on my own? Trying to teach myself.
Right.
That kind of thing. So just removing just that one thing from the equation just helped free up my mind to be in a space of my own, in my own space at home, where I didn't have to, worry too much about deadlines. Even though it was the best opportunity to actually get work done. Yeah. But just not having that separation between home and study was just...
Yeah. And then thinking about being optimal as well. Like we may have had all the time in the world, but there are so many shifting parts that like some people, you're like, I'm not used to being in this room by myself. Like I feel like I'm confined to this and I feel restricted, and like it does like huge things that we don't really see until you start feeling it. Yeah. And some people felt it harder than other people, which is for sure, but then it's like you're lucky you saw it in yourself, whereas some people, they didn't realize what was going on with them and then just crashed and they're just like, what the heck? Like so it's good on you for being able to notice that, and having a support system as well to be able to acknowledge them, because that's always something that I feel like a lot of us may have the support, but unless you can open your eyes to see that there is support there, it's hard to take it in.
Oh, no, and one of the things that I picked up in your conversation with Serafina was that she sought support as well from counsellors, and the Māori Centre actually has helped me throughout the years quite a bit, with the counsellors, with just the support that they offer when it comes to studies, and just sometimes they call you up and how are you doing, just things like that, just the simple things really just helped make me feel like I was supported, and it didn't matter the decisions that I made, as long as I was making them for myself. They were more than happy to support me in that.
For sure.
And that's, you want nothing more from an institution than for them to want what's best for you. Yeah.
And so in terms of you coming down and coming from something where you feel like you're part of a tight-knit community probably, and you've got like people who support you, and kind of how the systems work, and then coming down here to a space where like it's probably the first time you've seen this ruthless nature of like partying, but also just like a different culture altogether. How did you adjust into that? Because like obviously you had the TK program and you go into a hall, so you actually like are kind of supported there, but like you also have to find yourself within all of that as well. So what was that like transition like?
Oh, that transition was actually pretty amazing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, the TK year I met I met a whole bunch of great people. People that I'm still friends with now, that they're scattered across the country. People who have made it into professional health programs, and to have them, my tuakanas as mentors, as our support and stuff when we were going through our first year was really quite amazing. And I seem to have this mindset where I'm able to like just step back and see how things run. It was great for the first couple of years I'm here. I'm in the middle of it. I don't really have to know how things run. I'm just enjoying myself. Enjoying the Dunedin culture. I enjoyed meeting people and making new friends, and then just sort of when reality shakes you up a little bit, just taking a chance to step back and saying, oh, okay, so, there's Te Raupu Māori, there's, OUSA, this is how the Office of Māori Development works, this is how the university works, and just seeing the support structures, the hierarchy, where you can just taking a step back and being able to see that, it really helped put things into perspective for me, because there were, at times, I had friends asking me for help, asking me for support, and just being able to guide them to the right people, knowing who was around, and especially having those tuakana who helped me, who helped expose me to those sort of stuff. Like if they didn't do that for me, I never would have been able to help the people around me, kind of thing. And throughout the years that I, didn't take on a role, but I was there to support my tainer, and then they grew up to support their tainers. It's gotten to a point actually where we've gotten into with TK, where a lot of us don't even know who the juniors and stuff are, because of COVID, we haven't been able to meet up as regularly. Some things have been switched to Zoom, and then, I've got work priority. So I haven't been as involved, but just knowing that support structure is still available just for them as well. It's good knowing that. So you just get to this point where, you're oblivious to it, you're in the middle of it, and then that things can be taken, people can be taken care of. It's just been almost this whole cycle.
Absolutely. And what I love about that perspective as well is like it's no longer an age hierarchy. It's just who has the knowledge.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, no, it's never really been about the age. No. Like, I was... Yeah, just never been about age. Nobody asks how old you are. Yeah. Nobody asks, oh, how long have you been here for? Yeah. It's just, oh, cool, thanks for the support. Should we hang out? I mean, it's never really been an age thing.
Because, like, as you said, when you forget who the teina is, it's like, it's really contextual. So, like, the teina in this situation is this person because they haven't been through the same program that I have. Yeah. But, like, in this other situation, like, they are actually the tokana now because they know all of this. Yeah. So, like, it's just seeing who has the abilities at different stages, and it's seeing who can offer what at different parts. And I think something that you've brought up there, which I think in terms of, like, role modeling, like, you never see yourself as a role model because you're always looking to your mentors, but you never see the people who are watching you look to your mentors, and they're doing the same thing as well. So being able to reflect on that, I think, would be an awesome thing. Yeah. So just thinking now about, because when this goes out, like what I really do like are people who, we showcase the people who, graduate in 3 years or do all this and go on to do different things, rather than the people who are finding themselves as they go through. Because, like, the first one is a capitalist way of thinking. So, like, we're just like, you do here, you do that, you go off. And, like, yeah, sure, that's great, you got another graduate. But in terms of the individual that it's building, like, do they actually have the capacity to go out in the world, and, like, are they ready to make a difference? So, like, a journey like this, in most instances, people would be like, oh, what? This is taking forever. But I think because you've found peace in your journey, you're actually starting to think, like, okay, this is the strategic move now, or this is what I need to do so that I'm good to be able to do this. For you, like, was there any kind of chat in your mind, because you see what other people are doing, that, like, you're not fulfilling your potential? Or have you always just been okay with, like, nope, this is what I need to do?
I think when it comes to social media, you really do have to watch what you consume. So, there's been times, even recently as this year, where, I've looked at people graduating and stuff like that, and I'm like, that could have been me. But 90% of the time, I'm still doing me. I'm still going hard. I'm still going at it, and I'm just living the life that I've created for myself. That's awesome. And I'm quite comfortable and happy where I am. So when I do catch myself, thinking like that, I'm like, stop it. There are some people who would look at me and think, you've got it good. And even though the life is a struggle on the daily, it's just the endurance, the perseverance. Yep. I think that's kind of what's helped get me through, is that I've struggled through sometimes, and then I look back and I'm like, you know what, if that didn't get me, then whatever's coming tomorrow won't get me. There's always going to be a little bit of self-doubt. Maybe it will, but it's enduring through that, through those times, really just helped get me to where I am today, and helped me be grateful for everything that I have. Helped me be grateful for everyone that's around me, and that sort of stuff. So it's worked itself out in a way that I never thought that it would. So going through it all, it's like it was a struggle. Am I doing the right thing? Is anybody going to be disappointed of me? But I've never actually had to deal with that thought of disappointing anybody. My family's been proud of me. Since I was young, it didn't matter what I could do, what I would end up doing. I know that if I was happy, if I did it to the best of my abilities, then that's all that they could have asked from me. So to be where I am, and to still have that support and that love around me, is really quite quite an amazing thing, and I don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
And I do have a large and extended family, so large in fact that I still get asked, "Oh boy, are you still studying medicine? How long do you have left to go?"
Yeah.
And this is from the days where, I told them, "Oh, I'm not doing medicine, I'm studying anatomy."
Yeah.
"Oh, so medicine." So just having that large extended family and their support, even though they don't quite understand, they're still there for me. They're still, cheering me on no matter what I do. Like I still tell them, I'm like, "No, not quite doing that, just working at the moment." "Oh, that's okay, bub, as long as you're happy."
Yeah. But it's like genuine. This is like they're genuinely saying, as long as you're happy. Because I know there's a lot of people who say, as long as you're happy, and they're just like, I don't think that's the right idea. But like they're just like, oh well, he's happy, he's doing well, we look after. Yeah.
I mean, because compared to a lot of other people out there who haven't quite found their way, who are quite lost, things that they have seen throughout their lifetimes with their whānau, their cousins when they were growing up. And it's just a perspective thing. For
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think the more time you get to reflect on different things and the more time you get to chat, like that's the one thing I've loved about this podcast is I've chatted to 60 people now for an hour of just like getting to know a little bit more about how they think.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I've never thought about it that way. And then the more you just get so many different pictures in this puzzle that you're like, you'll judge a situation and you're never like, this is how it is. You're like, from this perspective, this is how it probably could look.
Yeah.
But I understand why that person's coming from that way. And it's almost the most relieving feeling to have understanding for so many different perspectives. Like you feel sorry for some people who do like something that most people would consider like, oh, you asshole. Yeah. But you're like, I'm so sorry that this is how you view the world. Because now you've got such a skewed perspective on what this world is.
Yeah, I think my job does good for me in the sense that I'm exposed to so many people. I meet like hundreds of people a day.
Of course.
And I have a key core of locals that they come in, daily. So just catching up with them, but also meeting a whole bunch of people with their own different opinions, their own perspective on life. And like I learned quite quickly, you can't judge them for their perspective. These are old people who have been hardened by experience, who have gone through some pretty tough times that we couldn't even imagine going through these days, and just being there just to say hi and just to offer them whatever we have makes that bit of difference for them. They're like, oh, there's still some good out there in the world. And I like to think that whenever I interact with people where I work, that they don't feel judged. They're coming in here for a drink or a kai, and I just want to give them a good experience. I want to show them I'm Māori, I'm a minority, but I'm going to treat you the same as I treat anyone, and with respect, with dignity, and I'm getting paid to do this job, so I'm here to serve you. I'm going to do it with the best of my ability. And that in turn, lead some people to open up about things that I never would have expected. So same as you on this podcast, just getting to know people's mindset and where they're at, and it becomes so easy. Getting to know people. It becomes so easy to just not judge and just to be there in their presence. And there's nothing more enjoyable for them than when they can be themselves in front of someone else.
You're so right. And it's just someone actually taking an interest. Someone just asking a question. Just being like, whoa, I've gone through an entire day dealing with all these different people and no one's actually asked, like, how am I actually going? And then you just go through that, and then they're like, and then you go through a cascading of things, and then they're just like this story, which leads to this story, which is where they are today, which none of us see.
Exactly.
We see them where they are, and we're just like, break, like just like that, and it's like you have no idea, like up until this point, where this person had just come from. So and like a lot of people, sharing stuff on your story, saying you don't know what people have been through, and then they just the first to like go gossip about everyone else. It's like, no, put yourself in a position to be able to like open up and listen, but like wholeheartedly listen, not to give your opinion, but just to be like, oh, cool, I've learned something today. Yeah. So you must get that, for sure. You would definitely get that a lot at Mahi. But also, I think one other thing that we find ourselves in a position of is listening to perspectives. Like, you don't judge the individual, but listening to perspectives that really challenge your own. So how have you kind of figured out to like hold a line, not be disrespectful, but like hear it in its entirety?
That's a good question, actually. There was, I guess there was one instance where this lady, she came up to me, or I went up to the table and she was like, the gentleman actually, he goes, so there is this, this train that takes you on a scenic view, just out south of Dunedin. Where is that? And I go, Te Ariki. And he turns to his partner and he goes, see? And she turns around, and because I heard this on the radio, but I didn't think that I'd come across someone who would actually think like that. But she was like, but it's always been Te Ariki to me, and blah, blah, blah. And I just, her reality was challenged pretty much, you know. Her reality was a lie all that time that she was growing up. But I'm not going to be here to judge her. Like, that was her upbringing. Yes, it was. Yes, it is called Te Ariki, not Te Ariki. But I guess you just kind of, there's no easy way to pop someone's bubble. And I just said, the proper pronunciation in Te Reo Māori is Te Ariki. And even though she still maintained, to me it's Te Ariki, I was like, that's okay. You know, that's your opinion. And I know there's probably got to be some people who are Te Reo Māori advocates that are like, you actually isn't okay. You need to hold the line. But in my line of work, I'm not there to, make people feel uncomfortable.
For sure.
Actually, I do sometimes, but especially when they're being kids, and I have to, and I have to remove them from the building. But she was a lovely lady. She, respected me and my opinions, and so I respected hers. And I was like, as long as you know now that it is Te Ariki, then I'm not gonna sit here and give you a lecture on how you should pronounce it for the rest of your life. And because I'm coming across these people for an hour of their lifetime. And if I'm not here to lecture them for that hour. I'm not here to change their perspective on everything. If I wanted to do that, then I'd probably put myself on a platform like this. But that's just one example. I guess there is a bit of a trade-off. Like, I do feel a sense to hold the line. I do feel a sense of, because especially with my pride, I do have a sense of pride in what I do and who I am, and to sort of let that, kind of take a back seat. I mean, it does hurt a little, but I'm still surrounded by a good support network. I still have the greatest friends to go back and talk to about certain situations that come up. So it's not like when I'm going through these situations, it's not like I have to have the right answer then and there, because we'll work through it together, and then I can reflect on it later and be like, that's so mature, because like, if you're going to have the time to be able to reflect on it later, and maybe you didn't handle it the best, or maybe you handled it the best that you could at that moment, you don't do anything though that's going to put you in the wrong seat. Like, you've just react because you're so mad and you're holding this, and there's so much mana in what you're trying to hold, that you actually kind of damage your own mana because you've gone out and done something that, like, this is not part of who I am, but because I reacted out of anger, because I didn't think in that moment, now like that lesson that I could have taught has now been overshadowed by me just reacting. And something that you said then, it's like, you gave your opinion, and maybe in that moment she like didn't agree. They don't agree. They're just like, oh, this is how I think. Then maybe like a couple weeks later, they have a reflection, and they're like, you know what? It's a really easy
thing to change.
Yeah.
I can do that. And then so you never know. Like it may not be in that moment, and it's usually not ever in that moment. Could be a year later that they're like, remember that lovely boy from the, and then they just like talk about it. Then the conversation keeps going.
It's
but at
planting
least,
the seed.
yeah, you've opened it up.
Yeah.
And that's a good place. And I think you're in a good spot to be able to do that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I definitely like to keep the dialogue open, and if people have their opinions, and by all means, even my locals know that they can challenge me on some things, but I'm like, you better be ready.
which I think the perfect mix of people to have around you are those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Who can challenge you. A lot of us get surrounded by a bunch of yes men who just like love us, and they're like, yeah, and then we agree with them, they agree with us. It's like, are you growing?
Yeah.
Is there anything in this that's actually allowing you to grow? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for your, this probably perspective, like if you do want to get back into studying, you take now more with you.
Exactly.
So like you as an individual, is that something that you're starting to, really realize now?
Well, I think because I've actually been working, on and off in the summers, when I wasn't studying, I was working in high school. And I've always had this constant, just exposure to the world, to people, to like working with people that are older than me. And I've always kind of had that. But in the line of work that I'm in, especially when it comes to public health and that sort of stuff, is that you do have to be quite open. And it has taught me quite a lot about, how to deal with people, how to manage my emotions around other people. So I do... if I did go back to study, like everything that I've learnt along, in my lifetime would help me to become better at what I'm doing in the long run. Yeah. Better at doing the job that needs to be done. Because I don't see myself, still being in a position where I can't tell people what to do. Change needs to come from someone who's confident enough to stand in what they know and push for change and have that courage to push for change. So that's never would have been able to do that without the exposure to the people that I've come across in my lifetime.
For sure, yeah.
Those that were accepting, those that weren't so accepting, those that were loving, and even those that were hateful. They're all part of the journey.
Yeah, and they do, and they build up different defenses or different mechanisms of being able to just deal with the world, because that's what we're going to come across a lot of the time is people who are all on different sides of the fence, and for you, part of that is being able to form a voice and being able to form kind of a narrative or some sort of understanding of political systems, but also just systems in general, and then wording or constructing really nicely worded Facebook posts that get a lot of attention from a lot of people. And I, like, for you, because I know when you speak, it's kind of easy. It comes out, it starts to flow, and then we can't go back and take words out and then re-look at it. Does this make sense? How long does it take you to construct something? Like, especially if you're talking about, like very contentious topics. They'd be contentious because a lot of people have different opinions for, like, anything around Te Ariki or like different times or when things should be public holiday. That the kōrero that you spark up on. When you're putting something like that together, is it a thought that's been lingering for a while? Then you're like, you know what, it's time to speak. Or are you just like in the moment, sit down and go?
It's a mixture of both, actually. So there's been times where I've been quite heated about sort of things that are going on, and then, you scroll on social media and you see how some people are reacting, and that's my response is to people reacting.
Right.
So it could be, quick. I wouldn't say quick, but it'll take me half an hour to like carefully word something. Because what I end up doing is like I'm typing what I think I want to say, and then I. Backspace. Start typing it again, backspace. And then, I could have said that better or in this way, and then I start reconstructing the sentence, like moving some things up, just so that it has this sort of flow about. Because people don't want to read a novel. I don't want to be sitting there typing an entire novel just so people can glance at the first paragraph. I want to capture everything in just the one paragraph. And so sometimes it could take me, half an hour just in response to sort of what I'm seeing happening around me. And then there could be times where it takes, like, there's just this thought in the back of my mind that I just want to get out there. I need people to know this, because there's been some people that, you know, have argued the opposite. And I just need, for me, it's just, Facebook is a platform that it's pretty much just close friends, really, and friends that I have met along the way, that sort of, you know, have seemed like cool people as well. My Instagram is just like 600 of pretty much, you know, the closer people, people that I know. I don't, you know, accept everybody willy-nilly. I don't just add anybody for no reason. There's, you know, ties, there's connections, and because of the community that I'm in, that I was introduced to when I got to university, I was like, we're so open-minded. Everybody, like, I have been exposed to posts from my friends who are calling people out as well, and they do it so elegantly. So I just picked that up off them, and I just have this itch sometimes to call people out on some of their whakaaro, some of their ideas, and if they decide to join the table and you know, jump on and comment their opinions, their whakaaro, you know, I'm not there to judge them. I'm just like, here, this is my whakaaro. That's, you know, they've responded, and I respect their response. Which is why I think I get some of the engagement that I do, but it also comes from, like, you know, just some of these whakaaro come from my upbringing, because for a little bit I did go to church. I was Christian, and you know, that I saw how it saved my brother, how it pulled him out of you know, out of dark spaces, and how it saved his life. And like, to me, that's where my passion for people came from, to helping people, because I saw what, you know, the power of God can do, the power of our atua, and because of that, because, you know, my thoughts were challenged about how, you know, society should be run based on, you know, Christianity. It got to a point, you know, okay, I came down to university, I was so open-minded and, you know, open to being taught everything, that I turned around and I realised not everybody has the opportunity to sort of question, to sort of, how would you say it, to sort of challenge themselves,
like,
and
where they
where they're at. So I challenged myself when I was in high school, and then, you know, I came down here and I'm challenging my own perspectives here, and then it seems like everybody just wants to be stuck in that one thing that they learnt that's worked out great for them, but there's no growth
for sure
for, you know, staying in your comfort zone, and I've pushed people to, you know, to question where they're at, and where their own whakaaro's at, and and I guess that's what has always led to the engagement that I get.
That's cool, and because one thing that I really respect about it as well is that if someone does come with an opposing view, like, because of how you don't rip people out. You're not in there being like, you're all idiots for thinking this. But then people who respond to you also feel that energy. They're like, I like this point, but don't really agree with this point. And then you're like, that's awesome. And then, like, go in again. And there's people who say, you know, we need to have discourse, we need to have conversation and all that. And then, but they're the types of people who want to have conversation to push a point. And it's like, well, like, if you're not going into this thinking that your mind could be changed by the end of this, then you're not actually in it for conversation. You're still trying to argue rather than have a conversation.
It's not going to get anywhere, and that's what I like to spark that. If somebody thinks that their idea is not going to be changed, then I like just challenging them to the point where they're like, oh, all right, you know, or I just got to simmer down for a little bit. You know, they're not going to admit that they're wrong, but just giving them. Just making people uncomfortable. I kind of like that.
Well, because if they're feeling uncomfortable, it's like, how bulletproof was your theory to start with? Like, if you're that uncomfortable right now, it's like, well, there's obviously some holes in your theory right now, or there are things you haven't thought about, and now that you know you have to go look at it, it might start changing a few things. So that's part of conversation, and that's part of, like, critical conversation as well. And if you're going into it thinking, you know, my mind could be changed, I could have read out this whole thing and then be like, someone give me other pieces to the puzzle and be like, okay, sweet. So kind of, but not really. And being happy with that. Being content, because, man, there's too many people who aren't in this to to learn or to grow. It's just, I'm out here to be right. And I think it's just because, they've always been in a position where no one's really challenged them. Yeah. So you're that person doing that stuff. That's cool, man. That's really, really cool. So thinking about something you said earlier, and I think it's all come back. You've talked about, you've brought religion into this. You've talked about the spirituality of healing and people finding something to be able to help them heal. And we talked about that at the very beginning with like climate change and all that. And part of that is a healing journey for all of us, pretty much everyone in its entirety. For yourself, how does that conversation start with other people, or is it just a conversation with yourself for now?
It feels like it's a conversation with myself for the most part. I do, like I said, I do come across a lot of people, and I do get the opportunity to express, little bits of my whakaaro here and there. But yeah, no, for the most part, I've been internalizing kind of where I want to be, which is why, coming back to the sickness, which is why I think my puku's been playing up, because I have ignored my senses, my drive to push for better things, in order to do what kind of feels like I have to just in this moment. Like I do have to work to better myself, or to get more money. I need more money to get access to healthcare, that sort of stuff. So I've almost cut out that focus. But again, realigning myself with the maramataka Māori and stuff like this has led me to a point where it's kind of it kind of seems like it's beyond words. I do get to, like I said, I do get to express how I feel, what I'm thinking to those that are around me, but it's kind of become a lot. It feels like it needs to be a lot bigger than that now. Okay. And it's all been internal for the most part. So for like right now, what's happening sort of at my home, at my haukainga back in Maunga Tautari, is that they're meeting to sort of develop our land, kind of put people back on it. And my passion, my goal, my drive right now, and it started in 2020 when some of my whānau were being displaced by COVID, is to sort of, put like tiny homes on land blocks. Get people living on the land. They don't have to worry about rent. Yep. They don't have to worry about power. They can start growing and cultivating their own food, and then they can start with the basics, learning about Te Ao Māori, learning about the maramataka Māori, the stars, and how just our environment influences the things that we do, like the food that we harvest, and how it could be better used for those struggling with mental health.
For sure.
Because like I said, I'm a people person, and I'm seeing a lot of people who just seem to be lost and stuck in the middle of everything. And I just want to provide them a space where they can get to know themselves, where they get to figure out who they are, where they are in this cosmos, and just pretty much go from there in a way that's sustainable, a way that is mutually beneficial, not just for themselves but for the hapu. If they can grow food that is that's enough for them and then some, then they'll be helping others who are in need, and then we can get more people back on the land. Like this whole sustainable way of living has just, like, I've watched so many YouTube videos about it, about how we could garden better, like ways of growing trees and shrubs around. There's so many different ways. I don't have the names for them, but yeah, it's just so that's what's been inside me, knowing what can be done to help those who are in need, to help those that are around us, those that haven't had the opportunity to be in tertiary education. Those, like I said, I come from a large extended family, and I am the second or maybe third to pursue tertiary education. Right. And just even having them in mind, thinking, what can be done to make your lives better.
For sure.
It's not, I don't know, it's not my responsibility, but it is kind of it feels like my tupuna are behind me.
Yeah.
And they're guiding me towards something.
For sure.
Towards something that's greater than myself.
Yep.
And I think as long as I've got, my tupuna behind me in this vision that, I can be doing something greater than myself. I've always had that passion, like I said. I moved from being a doctor to wanting to do public health. I've always had that drive to do better things for other people who are in need. And as long as I've got that, then I know I'm sort of heading down the right track.
Yeah, that's really, really awesome. And you're right. There's a lot of times where you feel like you're alone on it, but then actually there were many steps in place to actually get you to where you were, and that you're not, you're never going alone, because there was a legacy that was planned out way before you could ever have been fathomed. Yeah. And something you were talking about, with the sustainability and people kind of being in different places and getting to know themselves a little bit, but the sustainability is like finding rhythms. Because what we neglect now is that we have seasons, and that when you do different things are dictated by environment. But right now, as humans, we're very like, no, we need to get this, and it doesn't matter what the environment's doing. We just have to figure out, make some artificial thing, and we've just moved so far away from actually being in sync with like the things that birthed us, really, and who we are. And I think that's probably why a lot of us have this disconnect, and we're in like a limbo. We're in a limbo of being like, okay, I don't know where I'm meant to be, and we don't know where we're meant to be because we've lost that connection because of all this artificial everything around us. I think that's where we're at.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And it comes down to going to bed at night. If you're up at night and you're keeping your lights on or you're watching TV, even that is enough to get you out of your natural rhythmic cycle. Yeah. And if it's just like, then imagine how everything else is influencing sort of what we're doing
for sure
in this moment, and how susceptible we are to just the way that other people are doing life.
Yeah. Yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity to sort of focus on ourselves.
Yep. Yeah. And focusing on ourselves, and like it's hard sometimes as like an Indigenous person to start thinking about yourself and how that looks, but like I think for the overall goal, focusing on yourself is like a small things, even though it's still contribution to the collective. And just the other things, you're talking about lights, but also talking about how do we get the rhythms of the moon, which give your energy. But also thinking about that in a 9-to-5 world, it's like, damn, we're expected to be productive, but our rhythms don't allow us to do that. We have high periods, we have low periods, we have periods where we have to get off the whenua, we have periods that we have to come back. So where does that all tie into it? So that's all part of the journey.
It is. And I've actually experienced that firsthand. Obviously working where I'm working, which is at the barber. I don't think I mentioned that. But but yeah, no, you do notice that during, low periods there's less people coming through. Yep. You notice that on high energy moons that occasionally fights do break out. Yeah. So it's just crazy, just putting, just having that realization. And one thing that I've done, I've got a Maramataka Māori from maramatakamāori.co.nz. I think that's what it is. But there's this Facebook page where you can get it from. And there's, a lady on there who, Hini Hoterene, she updates every day. And actually quite recently, I haven't put anything on my Maramataka Māori, but she says, you should do it because you should be planning ahead for, what's to come, and that's the purpose of them, to use the resources that we have around or that we have access to, which, she's great. She's got some great resources, and just using what we have access to, and we're kind of getting into this day and age where, when it comes to Te Ao Māori stuff, they're becoming more readily available. Yeah. I mean, we're starting to come into this new era where people are now starting to change the way that they're thinking, and just because of little things like this. Yeah. So I reckon that's something I've got to get onto, but something that will be very helpful with planning in the future. Yeah.
And I mean, the thing is with this energy thing, I've dealt with hundreds of people, doing exercise stuff, teaching people, and you see it. You see the rhythms, you see the waves, but like everyone thinks they're the failure for having low points. And I'm like, no, we're wired like this.
Yeah.
But we are now put into a way of life that doesn't align with that.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just like, sometimes if we can, wherever you can, in the way that you do your work, in the way that you do anything else, like I know we're talking about work, but also other stuff, but you need to, like, if you understand this part of yourself, which was like internally driven, this has always been part of you.
Yeah.
Once you understand that part, you give yourself a bit more leeway. You're like, oh, okay, I'm meant to be low right now. It doesn't mean that you're like just doing nothing, but it means that you do lower energy tasks in this time, and you just give yourself the time. But then when it's time to be productive, have everything ready so that as soon as that comes around, you're hitting it. Yeah. And like I just think it's so weird because like for us, this is stuff that we've always known, and we're just like, oh yeah, I got to get back to that. But then when you explain it to, non-Māori or non-people, they just lose the plot. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's the one, honestly. And like some people would even compare it to, astrology.
Yeah.
And in a way, it kind of is like that. It's the stars and the moon are telling us where we are and when we are in this universe. And sort of what's needed at this point. And it's hard to, like, when you do tell someone who is non-Māori, someone who doesn't have the exposure to this, they're just like, whoa, like my whole world has just changed right now. And we just need more exposure to that pretty much.
Yeah. Oh man, it's like I still remember in like the first time I ever like presented on my health models and stuff like that, and they're just like, so everything's connected? Like, taking so many notes and stuff. They're just like, because social, I know sometimes when I'm not seeing my friends, I start to feel less like I don't want to do exercise. And I'm like, exactly. Yeah. It's all connected. They're like, whoa, like writing all these notes. I'm like, oh gosh. Yeah. Like, this is why it's only gaining traction now because people are starting to see, hey, this works, guys. Yeah. This works. And this is how it like always functioned. And then we had to shift. And now we're coming back, so hopefully we're on the rise.
No, we are. We definitely are, especially with the people that the people today are more open-minded. So if you had to come into, tertiary education 30 years ago and you said everything was connected, the professors and stuff would turn around and be like, well, where's your proof?
Yeah.
So we've gotten into a day and age where there's been so much research, so many people pioneering the way forward for Te Ao Māori and all things Pacific as well. Just to show, yes, things are connected, and we need to start thinking now about what we're going to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And so I just ask one question that I ask for everyone, which is something that you do every day or close to every day that helps you feel like you've optimized the day.
I guess walking helps.
Yep.
Yeah. Walking, I definitely, at Mahi at least, I walk at least 10,000 steps. So just to get out of bed and just go for a walk.
Yep. And in your walks, listening to music, are you just no headphones? What
Mixture.
are you? Yep.
So I like to go for walks through the Botan sometimes just to hear the birds.
Yep.
And then I go for walks sometimes with my headphones just to, pump myself up. I like, I'm one of those ones who when I'm walking and if a good song comes on, I start singing it. I'm doing like actions as I'm walking. But that's just me. I'm just expressive in how I feel, and I like being in a space where I can express, how I feel just through actions or sometimes through words. I sing a lot in the shower too. So I guess music helps a lot.
So music's your thing. And then the walking, and then just had one more questions that I should probably have asked during this. But when you have all of these thoughts and thoughts that can be quite hurtful as well, because a lot of it does challenge your values. It does. Sometimes can put a negative light on your people because some people said something that is actually quite disrespectful. How do you maintain your thoughts and how do you keep them so that they're always constructive rather than destructive?
I guess I think, like I mentioned it a little bit earlier, in my line of work I only come across people for an hour out of their day, and just knowing that if I can plant a seed, I don't have to go into arguments or anything. Just I can say a few words and leave the conversation there. Yeah. Just as long as I'm planting the seed and I know that I've done that. Yeah. then, you know, they're going to be better off for it. I'm not going to sow hate.
Yep.
I'm not going to sow, you know, disrespect. I'm going to sow what I think, what I think needs to be planted, which is always a bit of kindness, bit of love, respect, and, you know, just honouring who they are and where they've come from, but also challenging them.
Yeah.
So there's no element of, you know, there's no element that I'm sowing that I'm going to regret.
For sure. No, that's fantastic. And I think that's the really, really good place to leave it is, you know, we are thinking intergenerationally now. Yeah. Like you're not thinking about the short term, like what I'm going to get out of this if I win this argument. But it's just like, I know that the world will be a better place if this person goes out with a question in their mind of like, how should I think? I need to change the way I think. Do I? And like, once they get that, they'll be mindful. And if we can have more mindful people, then I think we're going to have a better place in terms of open-mindedness. I've really appreciated this. It's been a great chat. That flew by like nothing, but really appreciate your time. I think we need to get you back on at some other point just to see how things are going. But
thanks for having me.
No, hope you enjoyed it.
Cheers, I did.